Hi, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. This is Stephen Mead with Domicile Real Estate, where we are on a mission to help California's renters become homeowners. This is our first time buyer SoCal housing market update. So it's our housing market update specifically aimed at the entry level of the market. I hope everybody's been having a good week. I have some good news for you. I think it's really good news, actually. So, pretty excited to share that with you. If you looked at our title here and our description, you'll see that we have gotten through what I think is the worst of the inventory crunch. I think things are significantly better, and I can't wait to share how that might affect you and kind of what that might mean for you going forward. So, okay, we're going to go ahead and bring this data up here. There we go. Let's go back to the beginning. Alrighty, so we're going to start off with our prices as we always do. Just remember a word of caution. This is based on contracts that were negotiated 4 to 6 weeks ago. So we did see a peak number last week, and it looks like we've come down a little bit from there. Just as a reminder, the blue line is our entry-level detached home. So that's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath configuration. And the red line is an entry-level condo, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath configuration. This is for Los Angeles and Orange counties. And this is what we call our first quartile. Do not be afraid by the statistic speak. Basically, a quartile is just if a median is halfway between the bottom and the top. A quartile is halfway between the bottom and the median. So we think that's kind of a good approximation for sort of the entry level of the market. Here we are on our 3-bedroom, 2-bath detached home. It's 7.25, 725,000. And then here we are in our condo at $495,000. Now, just as a reminder, if we go back here historically, I know we don't spend a lot of time on the beginning part of this graph, but if you look here, it says we were in 2018, we were at $545,000 for our entry-level single-family home. We were at $397 for our entry-level condo. And then if you go here by the end of last year, or 12/31/2020, we're at $655 for our single-family home, and we were at $438,000 for our entry-level condo. Now, just to put that in perspective a little bit, we kind of came up with this total monthly payment chart. This really is meant to be an all-inclusive number. I don't think anybody was doing a very good job of kind of going over what the actual payments that buyers were seeing in the marketplace. So we kind of created this scenario here, 5% down. We included mortgage insurance, taxes, HOA in the case of our entry-level condo, to really come up with a total housing payment. That's what lenders call this. They call it a total housing payment. And for our entry-level single-family home, this actually dropped off those kind of higher numbers, and we were back down to right about $4,000. And then down here for our entry-level condo, we were right around $3,000. You'll notice these numbers did go down from the last week. What made them go down? Well, two things really. Number one is, if we go back, our price here dropped a little bit, but also mortgage rates improved as well. So really kind of some good news if you are a first-time or entry-level buyer in the market. Now, just for fun, I like to put this in perspective of qualifying. How much money do you need to make at a minimum in your household to afford these payments? Well, here for our entry-level single-family home, we have backed down under 100 grand. We're at $98,376, and we are below $75,000 here for our entry-level condo. It's $73,733. So really, I think there's definitely some good news in here if you're an entry-level buyer. These are by no means entry-level wages, but I think, especially when you consider household income, these are not stratospheric rich people only wages. Now for our absorption rate. So one of the things I do want to talk about a little bit is, last week we saw this number just really crater, right, to the lowest numbers kind of we had seen all spring. Well, guess what? Things have rebounded a little bit. I think I mentioned that part of that was going to be from the holidays included in this absorption rate. Looking at this number, this is definitely a competitive number in the 80s here for our entry level single family home. It's a little bit more manageable for our condos at 76%. But one thing I want to kind of draw your attention to is sort of a bigger trend. And if you notice, these numbers just accelerated and then they kind of stayed in this range. And if you look, I think there's a pretty clear trend line here of this market gently softening. And I want to talk about that just for a second. When we talk about real estate markets going up and down, everybody talks about percentages. Home prices went up 20% last year. Home prices are up year over year. One of the things that people don't talk about in markets, and I think this is really, really foolish, right? Is I don't think people talk about the speed of change of markets and how disruptive, violently changing markets can be. And really that applies to both up and down markets, right? I think this spring, we saw some huge price increases in a very short period of time. I think that was very disruptive. It created a circus-like environment. That's not my preferred market type, either as a representing buyers or sellers. So from kind of an economic health standpoint, right, what you don't want to see is you don't want to see a graph that kind of goes like this, that sort of shoots up and accelerates to a point where it can no longer sustain and then it falls back down like this. And in fact, if you were around in sort of 2007, 2008, that's pretty much exactly what happened. The market actually accelerated to a point. And if you've ever been to an air show, I think this is really a great representation. If you've ever been to the San Diego Air Show at Miramar, one of the things they do is they do a maneuver in aerobatic flying. It's called the hammerhead stall. And what you do is you take a plane and it swoops up like this, right? And it goes almost vertical, and then the plane actually falls backwards and the pilot tries to regain control. You don't want that in your real estate markets, right? That is not a healthy market. That is a very disruptive market for a lot of people. That creates a lot of problems. But I want to go back to this chart here because I think that this illustrates something that's very important, is that what I see is a market that is actually gradually softened over time. And you look at this trend line here. And I really think, and if we go back for a second just to prices, I'm going to do this. If we go back to prices here, we had a market that sort of accelerated and had a couple of jumps in spots. But really, if you look in this past month, I mean, this market has been a much flatter market in the last 2 months. I think most of the price acceleration was done early in the year. So I think for people that are afraid we're entering a situation of a market crash, I think that we are gently cresting a plateau, which I think is really a much safer market. This is not a market that changes wildly and rapidly. It doesn't mean there aren't week to week changes, because there definitely are. But, I don't think this is a boom bust market. It's not feeling like a boom bust market to me. Now, this is the real story that I want to talk about, because I think this is the one that if you are a buyer on the sidelines, I mean, this just really kind of, this is your call here. So if you look here, and I'm going to focus on single family homes first, and then I'm going to talk about condos, because what I'm talking about is a little bit different. If you look here, we had a decent amount of inventory in September of last year, and then that inventory level just plummeted in the next couple of months, and it never came back really. I mean, we just went through the spring all the way until May with just nothing in the way of inventory. And I want to put this in perspective a little bit, right? So this is basically around or under 1,250 active units for 3-bedroom, 2-bath detached properties. And then we started accelerating. And what I love is, now we've kind of gotten things have steadied out a little bit. And I feel like this 1,750 number is kind of a bit of a new number. That is almost a 50% increase in inventory. This is huge, folks. I think this means this market looks a lot more like last fall's market, which was still very, very busy, but not like it was this spring. So especially if you're somebody looking for detached homes, your individual market might vary, but really This is great news for you. Congratulations. You rode out the storm, which was really pretty miserable. And now you're at a point where overall the market, you have a little bit more choice. Now let's talk about condos for a second at the red line. Why have we not seen the same result? Well, we've seen a little bit of a rise of inventory in condos, but not nearly the same thing here. In fact, earlier in the spring, we had more condos than single family homes, and now this is reversed. And here's what I think is happening with this. I have a little bit of a theory in that I think there's a couple big changes that are going on in our industry when we're going to talk about condos versus single family homes. Number one, in many parts of Los Angeles and Orange counties, buying a new single family home, we are not building more single family homes. And if we are, they are at 1 million, 1.3 million, $1.5 million plus price ranges. This is just a reality. So what that means is the ratio over time, we're building a lot more condos. The ratio over time of condos to single family homes that are just in our market period, like that just exist, that ratio is starting to change. And I think consumer attitudes about condos are starting to change. I think a lot of people are looking at a condo living as sort of a viable long-term thing. And I think in the past, the attitude was buy a condo, move up to a house. And if that's still you, that's totally cool. That's plenty of people. But I think a lot more people are comfortable with the idea of a condo or a townhome being kind of a forever arrangement. The second thing is I think when COVID hit, I think there was a real condo backlash, a real just, I want to be away from people. I don't want to have neighbors, kind of a backlash. And I think what's happened is I don't want to say like it's swung the other way. I think the pendulum just got back to the center. I think that's not really a consideration for people anymore in their home buying decision. The pandemic sort of closeness is just not really a thing that people are factoring in those decisions anymore. All right, so that's kind of our total inventory. This is really kind of the best news. I wish it were a little better on the condo front. That market has always been a little bit different than the single family market, but boy, look at this extra inventory you get to see in these entry level single family homes. So this is our 14-day still active percentage. And I think this is also another graph that I like because it shows kind of this gradual change in the market. Now, if you were around in 2007, I can tell you most people can practically pinpoint the week the market changed because it felt like it was super dramatic. This is different. Now, remember, with this percentage point, lower numbers equal a more competitive market. If you look here, what you see is you see that these numbers are going up slowly and steadily. There's a trend line here, even though they bounce around week to week. So this kind of corroborates our sort of our absorption rate data too. Now, finally, we're going to talk about supply of homes, right? How many weeks supply? So whereas total inventory, total inventory really is just talking about the absolute number of houses. Week supply actually references how fast are houses getting snapped up in the market. And if you look here, we have retreated a little bit from this kind of lovely point where we hit over 4 weeks. We're down to 3.48, but understand that's still a good number when we look through the spring when we were pretty much in the twos the whole way, right? And honestly, we are again not that far off from where we were in the fall of last year, and I think that's important. Now, what I think is interesting is let's look at condos. They move back a bit. And remember, I told you I thought this would happen, that some of this data was being skewed a little bit by the holiday weeks. It went back down to about 5.5 weeks. That's still a pretty good number. We were mostly in the fours here, but we're not anywhere near where we were on the condos last fall. So that's definitely a shift. I think last fall, people didn't want to buy condos. I think now people aren't afraid of buying condos. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about what does this mean for you as a buyer. I think there's a lot of great things going on. I'm going to talk about the great things going on, the not great things going on, and then maybe how I think that might affect you going forward. So I think the pros right now are we are still at a point where interest rates are low. I don't know how much the current administration is going to allow interest rates to raise quickly, but I do think they're going to have to go up at some point. It's just a game. This is like musical chairs. We're all dancing around and nobody knows exactly when the music's going to stop on interest rates. So I think if you're a person in the sidelines, congratulations. Today, you have 50% more houses to go look at than you did. You are likely not going to face 30 offers on every house. I think this is a much better environment to be a buyer. Now, is it true that prices are higher than they were 6 months ago? Of course it is. And maybe if you could go back in time, you would have bought 6 months ago. But I don't have a time machine. You don't have a time machine. So we have to make decisions looking forward, not looking to the past. Now, I mean, the cons are, right, is that if we are in a market that is cooling, what are the odds that this market actually goes down a little bit? I think that's a possibility, but nothing tells me that we're looking at any kind of sizable reductions. And if a market dropped 5%, what have we done? We've erased the gains over the last 3 months. I don't think it's really made a very. I don't think that would really be that big of a market movement. I think the great thing right now is I think the ease of buying a house has gone up. I don't think this is nearly as arduous as a task as it might have been. It is still a competitive market at the entry level. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying, but I think it's a bit easier now than it might have been 3 or 4 months ago. What do I think long term about our market? I've talked about this a ton. My belief is that, I look for signs that we are kind of heading into some bizarre land where the numbers don't make sense, meaning home prices rise and the payments rise to this crazy level and nobody knows why. That's speculative purchasing and that scares me. I don't see that in this market. I do see that we have a shortage of housing. I do see that we have really, nobody has presented a viable solution to make up the housing shortfall, or even a set of viable solutions that I think will cure the shortage of housing in Southern California, especially LA and Orange counties. We're building, but we're not building nearly at the rate of household formation, and we already had a deficit. So the way I see it is I don't see housing getting cheap anytime soon. I just don't see any forces resulting in that in the near to medium term future. Longer than that, I don't know. We might find some solutions to our supply problems. Also, one final thing. This is in the description. We have a link of this. One of the things that we did is we kind of made a fun video this week. I call it window shopping. We didn't publish it on Facebook. It is on our YouTube channel, so you might have already seen it, but we're going to put a link in the description anyway. And this is just a fun. It's less than 10 minutes. We're thinking of doing more of these, talking about real houses and what you think. I love architecture. I'm a huge architecture fan. Some of you could probably tell by our backgrounds. I'm a fan, especially of mid-century modern architecture. So we have an entry-level Cliff May Ranch home, which I used to own one of these. They're really cool houses. This one is priced under $750, so I think it is kind of in that entry-level market, like we talked about. So definitely take a look and check that out. As always, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we love your questions and comments. And finally, if you are looking to become a homeowner in Southern California, we would love to talk with you. Don't be afraid to reach out, and we will see you real soon.